Around 2300 BCE, in the Temple of in ancient Sumer, a priestess named Enheduanna did something that sounds trivial to us now. She signed her name to her poems. But that act didn't just mark a moment. It created a category of human achievement that didn't exist before. The named author. There were written words before her, obviously. There were stories, prayers, hymns, thousands of them. But none of them had a name attached. No one stepped forward and said, "This is my dark work." It just existed, anonymous, attributed to the gods or the collective. And Enheduanna changed that. She was the daughter of Sargon of Akkad, one of history's first great empire builders. But instead of giving her a throne, Sargon made her the high priestess of the most important temple in Sumer, a political move, really. A way to say, look, we northerners, the Akkadians, respect your southern gods, the Sumerian ones. It was religion as diplomacy. What no one expected was that she'd use that platform to become a poet. She composed more than 40 liturgical pieces, hymns, prayers, laments, and here's the key part. She named herself in them. I, Enheduanna, she'd write, not anonymously, not as a priestess speaking for the temple, as in herself in. Her three most famous works, The Exaltation of Inanna, The Great-Hearted Mistress, and Goddess of the Fearsome Powers, weren't just religious texts. They were personal. She wrote about exile, about being forced out by a rebel priest named Lugalain. She wrote about fear, about anger, about feeling abandoned. Then she wrote about restoration, about the goddess Inanna bringing her back. They read like memoirs wrapped in devotion. And they worked. Her hymns were copied, recopied, taught. For nearly 2,000 years, they were the model for how people wrote prayers and praises. The Babylonians took them, modified them, and through the Babylonians, they made their way into the Hebrew Bible, into the Psalms themselves. If you've ever read, "Oh God, I cry out to you," or "Remember me," there's a thread that goes back to a priestess in Sumer who thought her thoughts mattered enough to sign her name to them. That was the real innovation, not the poetry itself. Any culture can produce poetry. But the idea that poetry can be owned, that a person can claim their work and have their name remembered for it. The crazy part? If she'd lived 50 years earlier, that wouldn't have been possible. There was no concept for it. If she'd lived 50 years later, someone else might have done it first. But in that exact moment, in a moment where her father's empire needed religious legitimacy, where the temple needed something that could unify two cultures, where she had the authority to try something unprecedented, she signed her name. And because she did, the concept existed from then on. Everyone after her could claim their work, could say, "This is mine, I made this, we take it for granted now." But Enheduanna had to invent it.
Imagine central Rome in 600 BC. Not the marble and columns you picture. Imagine swamp. The forum area where all decisions were made, where the market thrived, where power lived. It was literally a marsh. Standing water, fever, malaria. The city couldn't grow because the ground wouldn't support it. Then the Tarquini kings did something almost unthinkable. They decided to dig through the problem instead of around it. They built the Cloaca Maxima. The name itself is a flex. It means the greatest sewer. Not greatest asterisk by accident. They knew. A network of tunnels, vaults, and channels designed to drain the marshes and carry storm water from the Forum down to the Tiber River. Once the Forum was dry, something extraordinary happened. The city could build upward. The population exploded. Within generations, Rome transformed from a regional settlement into a trading powerhouse. All because one government decided that asterisk, not dying of malaria, was worth the engineering effort. Here's the part that reveals how far ahead Rome really was. The Cloaca Maxima was completed in the 6th century BC. The major European powers didn't achieve comparable underground sanitation systems until the 1800s. That's 18 centuries of preventable disease, because nobody else figured it out. By the 1st century AD, under Augustus and his engineer Agrippa, the system had been expanded to handle runoff from 11 separate aqueducts. It was cleaned regularly, maintained deliberately, treated as a permanent public asset, not a one-time novelty. And here's what really gets you. That same tunnel system is still functioning today. You can walk inside the Cloaca Maxima now. Tourists do. The engineering held. The concrete set properly. Rome's answer to the mosquito problem is literally ancient history you can touch.
Most of us organize our study sessions the same way. We pick one topic, drill it until it feels familiar, then move on. Piano players repeat the same passage 50 times. Language learners conjugate verbs in ordered lists. Writers revise section by section. It feels productive. It looks productive. Your brain tells you, I'm getting this down. But here's what learning science discovered: that comfort is a trap. When you practice the same thing over and over in one sitting, your brain is doing something lazy. It's recognizing patterns without really eternity distinguishing them. You're not learning to discriminate. You're just pattern matching a single context. Then you close the book. You take the test. And suddenly, that verb conjugation looks different in a new sentence. The passage appears in a new key. You freeze. This is called blocked practice. And research shows it creates the illusion of learning. Now imagine instead you spend 5 minutes on French future tense, then 5 on past imperfect, then 5 on present conditional, and you keep rotating. The drills are scrambled. It feels harder while you're doing it. Your brain has to work. In 2024, a study published in Science Direct looked at language learners using both blocked and interleaved practice. The blocked group felt more confident during practice. The interleaved group felt confused and discouraged. Here's the kicker. When tested a week later, the interleaved group remembered 30% more and could apply the rule to new situations. The blocked group forgot almost everything. Interleaving isn't new, but it's consistently underused. Why? Because learning should feel messy when it's working. When topics are blocked and organized, your brain learns to execute in a single mode. We're conjugating future tense. Use this formula. It's automatic. But interleaving forces a different operation. Which rule applies here? How do I recognize which one this problem is asking for? You're not just executing, you're discriminating. This discrimination is the bedrock of transfer. It's what lets you use what you learned in a new context, a job interview, a real conversation, a different problem set. A 2025 study in TAMI Applied Cognitive Psychology found that learners who practiced with interleaved sequences showed superior performance on transfer tasks compared to blocked practice, even though they spent the same total time studying. You don't need to overhaul your whole study routine. One shift. Instead of math chapter on quadratics, then chapter on linear equations. Do this. Mix them. Solve 3 quadratic problems, 3 linear, 3 quadratic again. Keep the topics interleaved throughout your session. Yes, it'll feel slower at first. Your accuracy might even dip during practice. That's the work happening. That's the discrimination building. When you test yourself a week later, you'll see the difference. The lesson: comfort in practice is often the enemy of retention. Scramble your drills. Let them feel messy. That's when learning is actually happening.
Every night, when you drift into deep sleep, something invisible happens inside your skull. Not dreams, not memory consolidation, cleaning. Your brain runs a literal waste disposal system, and it only runs then. It's called the Glymphatic System. Glia plus lymphatic. And it works like this. Cerebrospinal fluid, the clear liquid that bathes your brain, enters through tiny spaces around blood vessels. As your heart beats and you breathe, those vessels pulse, creating waves. Those waves move the cerebrospinal fluid through your brain tissue like water through a sponge. Here's what most people don't know. During deep sleep, specifically stage 3, NREM, the deepest phase, your brain cells do something remarkable. They shrink. That sounds wrong, but it's brilliant. When cells shrink, the spaces between them expand by almost 60%. Suddenly there's room for cerebrospinal fluid to surge through, washing away metabolic waste, broken proteins, misfolded tau, excess neurotransmitters, amyloid beta. Neurotransmitter norepinephrine also drops during deep sleep, which relaxes the vessels carrying fluid, making circulation even more efficient. But miss a night of sleep, and that system never activates. A 36-hour sleep deprivation study showed tau protein levels in cerebrospinal fluid increased by 51.5%. Just one night. In animal studies, it doubled. These proteins, tau and amyloid beta, are hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. They accumulate in tangles and plaques that damage neurons. But they accumulate fastest when the glymphatic system doesn't run. One all-nighter spiked amyloid beta by 30% on average in healthy young adults. 21 days of poor sleep increased amyloid plaque deposits as solid, insoluble buildup. The mechanism is clear. No deep sleep means no expansion. No expansion means no flow. No flow means waste pools in your brain, like water in a blocked drain. This isn't metaphorical. The glymphatic system is literally a perivascular network, channels around blood vessels, that moves fluid. It's not that sleep is good for your brain. It's that sleep is when your brain does its actual maintenance work, like running your car's oil through the engine. The expansion happens in stage 3, NREM, deep sleep, not REM. So fragmented sleep, lots of light sleep, waking frequently, those don't activate the system efficiently. You need consolidated, deep stages to get the full 60% expansion and the cerebrospinal fluid surge. One night of solid sleep clears that nightly waste. Chronic fragmentation or deprivation allows it to pool. Pooled tau and amyloid beta become physical damage. This is not a marketing claim. This is neurobiology. Your brain cleans itself during deep sleep. That's the mechanism. That's why sleep deprivation is measurable damage, not just tiredness.
Inside every slot machine, something extraordinary is happening right now. Even when the casino is closed, even when nobody's playing, the machine's computer is generating thousands of random numbers per second. Not hundreds, not tens of thousands, thousands. Every single second, it's like the machine is breathing, waiting. The moment you press spin, the algorithm doesn't decide your fate in that moment. It reaches back and grabs the most recent number it generated, a number chosen from billions of possibilities. That number gets translated into real positions. You see 3 symbols line up, or 4, and your brain tells you, I almost won. Here's the part nobody talks about. What you see on those reels is not pure randomness. It's curated. The actual RNG, the random number generator, has already decided the outcome. But the machine can delay which symbol appears on which reel by milliseconds. Just enough milliseconds to make it look like you were this close to winning. A player gets 4 out of 5 symbols for the jackpot. The 5th symbol lands 1 position away. Your brain doesn't care that the RNG decided this outcome 200 milliseconds before the reels even started spinning. Your brain sees, I was one symbol away. And that feeling, that almost win, hits your dopamine system harder than you'd expect. Neuroscience shows that near misses activate the same reward pathways as actual wins. Your brain gets excited about losing. Researchers studied this. They found that players with high impulsivity, the kind of people most vulnerable to gambling, showed 3 times more persistence when near misses appeared frequently, 19% of the time, versus rarely, 2% of the time. Think about that. The same person, same machine, same odds. But when the machine is asterisk designed to show near misses more often, they play almost 3 times longer before walking away. The casino doesn't even need to change the payout percentage. The return to player percentage is locked in, programmed into the machine, and unchangeable. But what Talatur does change is what you see and hear. Celebratory sounds play even after losses. Lights flash like you almost won. The real animations slow down at just the right moment. The machine is telling your brain a story. The story isn't true, but your dopamine system doesn't know that. It just knows. Keep playing. Slot machines were engineered with one goal: to separate you from your money in a way that feels like possibility, not loss. The randomness is real, but the experience is art.
Most animals, including you, have a sleep problem. When you sleep, you can't see threats coming. Your brain is mostly offline, your eyes are shut, and anything could sneak up on you. For birds living on water, ducks, geese, mergansers, that's catastrophic. Predators attack at dawn. So evolution solved this by breaking their sleep in half. It's called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep, or USWS. Sounds technical, but here's what happens. Only 1/2 of the bird's brain enters deep sleep, while the other half stays alert and watching. And here's the elegant part. Each side of the brain controls the opposite eye. So if the left hemisphere is resting, the right eye stays open, scanning for danger. 20 seconds later, they switch. One eye closes, the other opens, and the brain hemispheres swap. Not all sleep is equal. When a duck needs full rest, both hemispheres will sleep, but never both eyes at the same time in risky situations. Researchers have watched oyster catchers on shorelines keep their eyes open longer when walkers approached. These birds literally adjust their sleep strategy based on perceived threat level. How fast can a bird react to danger with just one eye? A mallard can spot a threat and respond in less than 1/5 of a second. That's faster than a car horn. That's the difference between survival and becoming a meal. And they're not guessing. They're actually seeing in high definition out of that single open eye while the other half of their brain catches up on sleep. Some birds take this to extremes. Frigate birds, ocean raptors that can stay airborne for 2 months straight, use USWS in microbursts. They power nap for seconds at a time while gliding over open ocean, never truly landing. No safety net, no full sleep. Just one eye and half a brain on watch, indefinitely. You probably think of sleep as a binary switch, on or off. But nature shows us it's a dial with infinite settings. The same neuroscience that lets birds split their sleep is present in dolphins and whales. Humans don't do this, but understanding how half-brain sleep works has changed how neuroscientists think about consciousness and attention. Sleep isn't just about the brain resting. It's about survival. And sometimes, survival means never being fully asleep at all.
In the 1500s, solving cubic equations was basically witchcraft to mathematicians. Not literally, but it felt like it because no one had figured out how to do it. Quadratic equations? Fine, that formula existed, but cubics, the x-cubed stuff, was the frontier. If you solved it, you'd be famous. Niccolò Tartaglia was a self-taught mathematician from Venice. He had a speech impediment, which is actually how he got his nickname. Tartaglia means the stammerer. He was brilliant, obsessive, and he'd spent years trying to crack the cubic. And in 1535, he did. He didn't publish it. This is key. He kept it secret. Why? Because in those days, mathematicians guarded breakthroughs like trade secrets. You'd challenge rivals to public problem-solving competitions, where you'd use your unpublished method to beat them. It was a reputation economy. Publish too early, and you lose the edge. So Tartaglia sat on his discovery. Enter Girolamo Cardano, also in Italy, also ambitious, also a mathematician. Cardano heard rumors that Tartaglia had solved the cubic. He reached out, asked him directly. Tartaglia refused. Cardano was more famous, better connected, better published. So he just kept asking, kept pressuring. Finally, Tartaglia agreed to share the method, but only on one condition. Cardano had to swear a solemn oath that he would never publish it. Cardano swore it. In writing, "I swear to you by the sacred gospel and on my faith as a gentleman, not only never to publish your discoveries." Cardano used Tartaglia's method, combined it with other techniques, and then, here's where it gets shady, he discovered that another mathematician, Scipione del Ferro, had solved a related version of the cubic before Tartaglia did. Cardano interpreted this as a loophole. He thought, well, if someone else solved part of it first, I'm no longer bound by my oath. In 1545, Cardano published Ars Magna, the Great Skill, and included all the cubic solutions. Yes, he mentioned Tartaglia in the book. Yes, he acknowledged the method came from Tartaglia's work, but he published it anyway, without permission, against his sworn oath. Tartaglia was furious. What happened next is where it gets genuinely brutal. Tartaglia couldn't fight Cardano directly. Cardano was too established, too connected. So Cardano sent his assistant, Ludovico Ferrari, to respond with pamphlets attacking Tartaglia's character and math. This escalated into a public feud that lasted 19 years. They exchanged insults, accusations, challenges. Eventually, Tartaglia and Ferrari met for a public mathematical duel in Milan. Tartaglia lost. He fled the city in humiliation. Ferrari got job offers from dukes and nobles. Tartaglia spent the rest of his life poor and obscure, died impoverished, and the cubic formula is asterisk still, called the Cardano formula, even though everyone now knows Tartaglia was the one who solved it. This whole story happened in the 1500s, centuries before copyright, patents, or intellectual property law. But Tartaglia understood something we still grapple with today, that taking credit for someone else's work, even if you slightly improved it, even if you published it, is a kind of theft, and that betraying trust for success isn't a win, it's a ruin. Cardano's name survived. His reputation survived. But the formula that built his legacy? That's Tartaglia's. He just never got to claim it.
Look at a map of Scandinavia, and you see something that looks broken. The coastline isn't a coastline. It's fragmented into 1,000 deep, narrow cuts. Fjords. They look like someone took a knife to the map and carved downward. They did. But the knife was ice. Glaciers moved down from the north during the ice ages, not once, but dozens of times over 2.5 million years. Each time, they deepened valleys, scraped bedrock into U-shaped canyons. When the ice melted, seawater filled those valleys. What was left was something unique, a natural inland waterway that was deep enough for ships, protected from open ocean, and carved straight into the heart of the land. Norway alone has over 1,700 of them. 17,000 kilometers of fjord coastline. Not a single one made by human hands. Everyone was engineered by ice. Now imagine you're a Viking trader or raider. Your competitors are in the Mediterranean, the North Sea, competing for the same routes. But you have something they don't. Fjords. Natural harbors. Protected from storms. Deep water that lets your ships go inland, where armies on land can't follow. Take the Limfjord in Denmark. It had 2 openings, one to the east, one to the west. That meant a ship could cut straight across Denmark without risking the open ocean. For trade, that's gold. For warfare, that's a cheat code. The Jotunheimen region was a massive trading corridor for salt, iron, and fish. Fjord access meant access to resources no one else could reach efficiently. Every other maritime power in history had to choose: go around coastlines or risk open water. Vikings got a third option, laid down by glaciers millions of years before ships were invented. Geography isn't destiny, but it sure helped the Vikings build one.
You read a book. You watch a lecture. You highlight passages and take neat notes. It feels like learning. It ties a form of learning. But here's what research reveals. You're retaining maybe 5 to 10% of what you consumed. Why? Because your brain was a passenger. It was receiving, not generating. Cognitive psychologists call this the asterisk generation effect, and it's one of the most reliable and most underused findings in memory science. The principle is simple. Information you generate yourself is remembered better than information you receive passively, sometimes dramatically better. A meta-analysis by Springer Nature looking at 100+ studies found that generation can roughly double recall compared to passive reading. Double. Not 10 or 15% better. Doubled. Now imagine this. You've read a textbook chapter on photosynthesis. You close the book. Then someone asks you to explain it to them. No notes, just your own words. Your brain has to work. You can't recite the textbook. They didn't ask for that. You have to take the disconnected facts and rebuild them into a coherent explanation. You have to decide what's essential, what's a detail, what connects to what. You're not retrieving information. You're generating times a new structure for it. This is where the magic happens. When you passively read, specific brain regions activate in a narrow pattern. Intake. Basic processing. But when you explain something aloud or teach it, your brain lights up in distributed networks. You're activating language regions, memory retrieval, conceptual reasoning, even motor areas. It's a full brain event. Research published in Times NIH PME Time shows that this broader activation creates durable memory traces. You're not just storing the information, you're binding it to multiple retrieval cues in your brain. So later, when you need that knowledge, there are more pathways to get to it. If you want to harness the generation effect, here are the 3 most effective methods. First, close sentences. Instead of reading, photosynthesis converts light energy into chemical energy, you fill in the blank. Photosynthesis converts ___ energy into ___ energy. You generate times the answer. Your retention jumps 20 to 30%. Second, Tuan Dok Shegari Narm explanation. After reading a paragraph or watching a video, pause and explain it aloud to yourself or write it down. Don't read your notes. Generate an explanation. Studies show This improves retention by 20 to 40%. Third, teaching others. The most powerful. Explain the concept to a peer, a friend, your family member over dinner. No notes, just you and them. This forces the deepest generation because you have to anticipate confusion, clarify ambiguity, and make it coherent to asterisk someone else's mind, not just your own. Research from Key to Study and other learning science outlets shows that people who teach a topic retain 80 to 90% of it weeks later. People who passively read retain 5 to 10%. One caveat: the generation task has to be asterisk challenging, but not impossible. Too easy and you're not generating much. Too hard and you get frustrated and give up. Cognitive scientists call this desirable difficulty, a sweet spot where effort and success are balanced. If you're explaining photosynthesis to someone with zero biology background, you have to generate at a deeper level. If they're a biology teacher, it's less work. Choose your audience accordingly. You've learned something, a new skill, a concept, a piece of knowledge. Don't stop at passive review. Force yourself to generate. Teach it to someone. Write an explanation for a beginner. Make a video tutorial, even if no one watches it. Explain it to yourself aloud in your car. The medium doesn't matter. What matters is that you're generating, not passively receiving. Your brain will do the work. And that work is what transforms receiving into remembering. That's the generation effect in action.
Right now, your heart is beating. You probably can't feel it unless you focus. But your brain knows. Your brain is always listening to it. And that listening, that continuous awareness of your heartbeat, your breath, the hunger in your stomach, the tension in your shoulders, that's called interoception. It sounds abstract. But interoception is wired directly into your sense of time, your emotional regulation, and your sense of self. And almost nobody knows it's happening. A region in your brain called the anterior insula handles two things. First, processing signals from your body, heartbeat, breath, visceral sensations. Second, perceiving time, estimating how long things take, how long ago they happened, the duration of a moment. Those aren't separate pathways that happen to be nearby. They're integrated. The same neural tissue processes both, which means the body is literally part of how you measure time. Here's the proof. Studies of people doing interoceptive training, focusing on their heartbeat, their breathing rhythm, show improvement in timing accuracy, especially at short intervals, milliseconds to seconds. Your subjective experience of time duration gets more precise when you sharpen your awareness of your own bodily signals. The correlation is real and measurable. More interoceptive accuracy equals more precise time estimation. Your heart and your clock are the same system. Here's the mechanism nobody talks about. Interoception anchors your experience in the present moment. Not thinking about the past, not anticipating the future, but grounded in what's happening in your body right now. Your breath is now, your heartbeat is now, the sensation in your chest, your legs, your hands, all now. When you're aware of those signals, you're tethered to the present. That's why mindfulness practices emphasize breath awareness. Not because breathing is special, but because your awareness of your breath is an interoceptive signal that anchors you in real time, in actual sensations, rather than rumination or planning. Emerging research calls this embodied consciousness, the idea that your sense of self, your emotional regulation, and your temporal awareness aren't abstract cognitive functions. They're rooted in your ability to sense and appraise signals from your own body. Your heartbeat, your breathing, your digestion, these aren't noise, they're data. Your brain integrates that data into everything from how you regulate emotions to how you experience the passage of time itself. People with stronger interoceptive awareness also show more balanced time perspectives, more stable emotional regulation, and a clearer sense of what's happening right now versus memory or anticipation. This explains why focus breaks work. Not because you're resting your eyes or your mind, but because shifting attention back to interoceptive signals, feeling your feet on the ground, your breath, your posture, resets your temporal and emotional baseline. You're literally reconnecting to present moment bodily data.
Most people think McDonald's is in the restaurant business. That's wrong. McDonald's is in the real estate business. And the burger is just the excuse to collect rent. Here's the actual breakdown. 95% of McDonald's restaurants worldwide are franchised. That means franchisees own the operation, hire the staff, and do the actual cooking. But McDonald's? McDonald's owns or controls the real estate, the building itself. So when you pay for a burger at a franchise McDonald's, that money goes first to the franchisee. But McDonald's isn't done collecting. The franchisee also pays McDonald's a royalty on every single sale, 5% of revenue. And then, on top of that, they pay rent to McDonald's for the privilege of operating in the building McDonald's controls. Double extraction. Rent plus royalties, both flowing upward. In 2023, 61% of McDonald's total revenue came from franchised restaurants. That's not franchise fee and fees, that's the rent and royalty payments combined. Roughly $15.7 billion. Now here's the stunning part. McDonald's profit margin on franchised locations is over 80%. 80%. Compare that to company-operated restaurants, where McDonald's has to pay staff, utilities, food costs, and manage day-to-day operations. Margin there? About 15%. Why would any company choose 15% when it could choose 80%? Because franchising turns restaurants into real estate. McDonald's holds over $41 billion in property and equipment. It's one of the largest property owners on Earth. It just happens to have McDonald's written on the buildings. You think of McDonald's as a corporation with thousands of restaurants. The truth, McDonald's is a landlord with a restaurant branding strategy. A franchisee opens a McDonald's with dreams. They think, I'll run this restaurant, build my business, earn my profit. But the math works differently. They're paying franchise fee, upfront cost, rent to McDonald's, 5% of every sale as royalty, dash training and support fees, marketing contributions, 2.6% to National Fund. By the time they cover all that, their margin is thin, some years profitable, some years not. But McDonald's? McDonald's collects rent, whether the franchisee is profitable or not. If the location is terrible, the franchisee loses money. McDonald's doesn't care. They own the building. They'll lease it to the next franchisee. McDonald's transferred all the business risk to franchisees while keeping all the real estate upside. It's genius and totally legal. McDonald's isn't trying to make money on your burger. It's trying to control the real estate where burgers could be sold. It's not a restaurant company. It's a commercial real estate company. And the business model is own the location, take the rent, then also take a cut of the revenue from whoever operates there. Ray Kroc, McDonald's founder, figured this out in the 1950s. He didn't franchise restaurants, he franchised real estate. And that decision made McDonald's one of the most profitable companies in history.
Your brain sits in your skull. It micromanages everything, every finger twitch, every eye flick, every breath. That centralization works great if you're walking in a straight line. But it's a disaster if you need to do 8 things at once in 8 different directions. So the octopus didn't evolve a bigger brain. It distributed them. An octopus has one central brain behind its eyes, just like you. But it also has 8 additional neural clusters, one wired into each arm, And these arm brains can operate independently. They can taste, touch, make decisions, and act without asking permission from headquarters. Imagine if each of your arms had its own mini brain that could decide, I'm hungry, I'm going to hunt, without your head knowing about it. That's an octopus every single day. While the central brain can exert top-down control, the octopus as a whole organism can decide to do something. The arms are constantly doing their own thing. Each sucker on an octopus arm has thousands of chemoreceptors, tiny taste sensors. So when an arm touches something, it's directly tasting it. The arm doesn't wait for the brain to tell it what it's touching. It knows instantly and can act on that knowledge. An octopus could be hunting with one arm, while another arm explores a rock formation and a third arm guards a den, all happening in parallel with minimal communication. Here's where it gets stranger. Octopuses are colorblind. Their eyes have only one type of photoreceptor, so they literally cannot see color the way you do. Yet in 1/10 of a second, blink and you miss it, they can change their entire body to perfectly match their surroundings. They're matching colors they can't see. How? Scientists still don't fully know. But the latest thinking is that their arms are seeing the environment differently than their eyes, processing visual information across their entire body's surface simultaneously. 9 brains working in parallel, solving a problem your single centralized brain couldn't solve fast enough. Coconut octopuses are famous for carrying empty seashells with them for miles, waiting until they need a shelter, then assembling them around their body like a portable fort. That's planning, that's tool use, that's a level of cognition we usually only see in primates. But they're doing it with a brain architecture that's completely alien to ours. They think in parallel, they act in parallel, and they don't need a central authority to approve every action. We assume intelligence looks like centralized decision-making because that's how we're built. But the octopus proves that distributed, semi-autonomous thinking can be just as smart, maybe smarter in certain environments. Their brains don't need unanimous consent to act. They think like a committee, where everyone has veto power but nobody's waiting around for meetings. It's a completely different kind of mind. And it works so well that octopuses, despite having no bones and living alone, are considered among the most intelligent animals on Earth.
On a summer day in 1930, off the coast of Bermuda, 2 men were lowered into the ocean inside a metal sphere barely bigger than a car. Inside, through a tiny window, they could see things no human had ever seen. Deep-sea fish with teeth like needles, organisms that didn't exist in any catalog. One of those men was William Beebe, a naturalist and writer, famous already, charismatic, good with words. The other was Otis Barton, an inventor and engineer. The sphere itself? That was Barton's design, his engineering, his baby. But here's the thing, almost nobody remembers Barton. They went deeper and deeper. In 1930, they hit 600 feet, a record. In 1934, they hit 3,028 feet, nearly half a mile down. Beebe, who was an excellent writer, published accounts of what they saw. National Geographic published them. The fish, the bioluminescence, the alien landscape. It was incredible. Beebe got famous for describing it. Magazines featured him. He became hundred-side face of deep-sea exploration. Barton was there. He was the one who built the thing, but he was the quiet guy in the background of every photograph. Here's what's crucial. After Beebe and Barton's partnership ended, Barton didn't stop. He designed a new vessel called the Bentoscope that was stronger, that could go deeper, gunded. In 1949, 15 years after that famous 1934 dive, Barton went down to 400 or 500 feet alone in his own vessel. He broke the record. He went where nobody else had gone. He wrote a book about it, *The World Beneath the Sea*. It was good. But it didn't get the attention Beebe's writing got. Beebe had the narrative, the charm, the publishing platform. Barton had the engineering and the achievement. But the world was already looking at Beebe. What Barton's story shows us is something we don't talk about enough. How easy it is for the person who communicates a discovery to get more credit than the person who makes it. Beebe was a naturalist first, a storyteller. He knew how to frame what they saw, how to make it vivid, how to sell it. Barton was an engineer. He built the sphere that made it possible. He went deeper solo. He innovated. But he wasn't as good at telling the story. In modern terms, think about it. How many people could name the engineer of the Apollo spacecraft? But everyone knows Neil Armstrong. How many people know the programmer who wrote the algorithm behind their favorite search engine? But everyone knows the CEO. We live in an era where the person in front of the camera, or the person with the best memoir, gets the credit, while the people building the actual thing are footnotes. Barton lived until 1992. He watched Beebe get more famous, watched his own achievements get overlooked, watched the bathysphere become known as the thing Beebe went down in, not the thing Barton engineered. He broke records independently. He proved he wasn't just along for the ride. But by then, the narrative was already written. The bathysphere was brilliant engineering. The bentoscope was even more brilliant. But we remember it as Beebe's discovery, Beebe's adventure, Beebe's ocean. That's not Beebe's fault, exactly. It's just how stories work. But it's worth asking, what other Bartons are out there right now, doing the hard engineering work while someone else takes the credit?
You can't see Earth's magnetic field, but it's always there. It's a protective shell that deflects solar radiation, keeps the atmosphere from being blown away, and lets every GPS device on the planet know where it is. It comes from a churning ocean of molten iron thousands of kilometers below your feet, and it's been keeping life safe for billions of years. Except it's got a problem. A big one. And it's growing. There's a region of Earth's magnetic field that's drastically weaker than everywhere else. It stretches from South America all the way across to Southwest Africa. Scientists call it the South Atlantic anomaly. It's not new. It's been there for centuries. But since 1970, it's been doing something alarming. It's getting bigger. And it's moving. Every year, the anomaly moves westward about 20 kilometers. That doesn't sound fast until you realize it's been doing that consistently for 50 years. The area of weak magnetism is expanding. The intensity keeps dropping. And nobody fully understands why or when it stops. Satellites hate it. When a satellite passes through the anomaly, Earth's weakened magnetic field can't protect it from solar radiation. The radiation can damage electronics, flip bits in memory, corrupt data. Some satellites shut down non-essential systems when they cross over, then boot back up when they're clear. It costs money. It adds risk. GPS gets weird there. Compasses can't be trusted. Power grids can experience unexpected surges when solar wind hits the thin spot. And here's the unsettling part. NASA is monitoring the anomaly because scientists have noticed something else happening. The anomaly might be splitting. The data suggests it could break into two separate weak zones instead of one continuous region. If that happens, navigation systems across multiple continents might need to recalibrate simultaneously. Earth's magnetic field reverses periodically in geological history. It has hundreds of times. Usually it takes thousands of years. But the South Atlantic anomaly is a signal that something is shifting now, not in a millennium. Now, we don't know if this is a prelude to a reversal or just a temporary weakness. But every 20 kilometers westward per year, the uncertainty gets a little closer to home.
You're deep in focused work. Your time's the zone. Then your phone buzzes. Just a quick check, you tell yourself. 2 seconds. You glance at the notification, dismiss it, and go back to work. Your brain tells you, I switched and I came back. No problem. I'm still in the zone. But you're not. And research shows that what you just cost yourself is far more than 2 seconds. In 2009, a psychologist named Sophie Leroy conducted a study on task switching. She found something remarkable. When people switched from one task to another, a portion of their attention remained stuck on the previous task. She called this attention residue. It wasn't about the time spent switching. It wasn't about the distraction itself. It was about the asterisk cognitive footprint left behind. When you stop task A and start task B, part of your brain keeps cycling on task A. The thoughts don't cleanly disengage. They linger. They press residue. Just how much does this cost? A 2009 study published in Science Direct found that people who switched between tasks spent far less of their actual time doing productive work. The researchers put a number on it. Roughly ** 40% of productive time is lost to the switching process itself. That's not exaggeration. That's just loss. And it gets worse when you're juggling multiple concurrent projects. Research shows that when you manage 5 projects simultaneously, only * 20% of your time goes to actual productive work. Point 2. The other 80% evaporates in switching costs. Note that 80%, not 80% less productive, 80% of time spent not producing. The residue is strongest when the task you switched from was first. Nummer smov, unfinished. Your brain has an unclosed loop. It's actively trying to resolve something that didn't reach completion. That tension doesn't release when you switch. Second, no time pressured. If you were rushed, your neural resources were in high alert. That alert state doesn't instantly switch off. Third, emotionally engaging. A difficult conversation, a frustrating problem, something that triggered stress or anxiety. That emotional activation lingers. Even a quick check, I'll just peek at my email, can generate residue if the email queue is unresolved, if you're waiting for a critical reply, or if you skimmed something stressful and didn't fully process it. The residue doesn't just steal time. It degrades the work you produce. People who switched tasks midstream performed significantly worse on their subsequent work compared to people who finished their first task before moving on. The research is clear. The work contains more errors, it lacks depth, and it requires more revision cycles. You're not just slower, you're producing lower quality output. And you'll have to redo parts of it, which means the cost isn't 40% lost time. The cost includes rework, error correction, and the cognitive load of managing fragmented attention. At a global scale, the annual productivity loss from attention residue and context switching is estimated at $450 billion per year. That's not theoretical. That's real output, real innovation, real work that never happens because of switching costs. Your individual cost might be smaller, but it compounds, day after day. Week after week. You can't eliminate residue entirely, but you can minimize it. First, close loops before switching. If you're stopping a task, don't just pause it. End a natural unit of work. Finish a thought. Complete a section. Writing a summary before you switch also helps close the cognitive loop. Second, batch similar tasks. Instead of jumping between email, Slack, and deep work, block time. 1 block for communication tasks, 1 block for focused work. Within each block, you still switch, but you're operating in the same Thames mode, so residue is lighter. Third, protect your deep work blocks. The most critical work, the kind that requires full neural resources, deserves uninterrupted time, real blocks. No email checks between paragraphs. That's when residue is most damaging. Fourth, use transition rituals. If you must switch, don't jump immediately. Take 30 seconds. Stand up, get water, reset your environment. This isn't wasted time. It's a neural reset that reduces residue carryover. Here's the paradox. The busier you are, the more you need to protect uninterrupted time. When your calendar is packed and your project list is long, the instinct is to multitask, to squeeze in just one more thing between meetings. But that's precisely when residue costs you the most. When you're stretched thin, the 40% loss becomes critical. You need every unit of actual productive time. The solution sounds counterintuitive. Work tiles total stuff, but more deeply. Fewer projects, but finished projects. Fewer meetings, but focused meetings. It's not about being lazy. It's about protecting the neural resources that actually produce output. Look at your day tomorrow. Identify your most important task. Block out uninterrupted time, at least 90 minutes. Close email, silence your phone, no Slack, no quick checks. Work on that one thing. Finish a complete unit of it. Notice the difference in what you produce. Notice how much more you complete when the attention residue never accumulates. That's the cost of switching. That's the cost of residue. To protect your focus, your future self will thank you.
Inside each ear is a marble-sized structure filled with fluid and tiny crystals. It's called the Vestibular System, and it does one job: tells your brain which way is up. You have 3 semicircular canals that sense rotation, 2 otolith organs that sense linear acceleration, and gravity, all of it feeding constant signals to your brain, tilting left, moving backward, accelerating forward, staying still. Most of the time, you don't notice. It's subliminal. And that's exactly why it matters for attention. Your vestibular system is what neuroscientists call a fundamental spatial cognitive anchor. It provides a stable internal reference frame, where you are in space, which direction is forward, how your body relates to the world around you. Here's the crucial part. When your vestibular system works efficiently, your brain doesn't have to compute this constantly. It's automated. Your spatial grounding is handled by a system that's been tuned by millions of years of evolution, which means your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that handles complex thought, sustained attention, multitasking, is free to do other things. That's cognitive resources not spent on spatial updating. That's bandwidth available for focus. When vestibular function is compromised, whether by inner ear damage, concussion, aging, or neurological disease, the brain has to work harder to maintain spatial orientation. Suddenly, those spatial computations aren't automatic anymore. Your prefrontal cortex has to allocate resources to solving the equation. Where am I? Which way is up? How does my body relate to this room? And those computational costs come from somewhere. They come from attention, from sustained focus, from working memory. Studies of visual monitoring tasks show a clear pattern. Individuals with better vestibular function and naturally wider attentional breadth, the ability to perceive multiple items simultaneously, outperform those with vestibular dysfunction. The vestibular system doesn't just keep you balanced. It's the foundation of focus itself. This explains something strange that happens in microgravity. Astronauts report difficulty concentrating on fine tasks, reading instruments, performing repairs, even though intellectually they understand what they're doing. Why? because their vestibular system is sending no gravitational signal. No up, no down, the spatial anchor is gone. Suddenly, their brain has to allocate massive cognitive resources just to establish a basic reference frame. That leaves almost nothing for the actual task at hand. They're not tired, they're not dumb, they're just running their attention through a bottleneck: gravity loss. The vestibular cortex, the part of your brain that processes balance signals, connects extensively with the attention control networks in your prefrontal and parietal lobes. These aren't separate systems. They're wired together. Efficient vestibular processing preserves cognitive resources. Unstable vestibular input forces compensatory effort, depleting resources available for concurrent tasks. That's why balance training can improve focus. Not because balance and attention are mystically connected, but because vestibular function literally underpins the cognitive infrastructure of sustained attention. Your inner ear is not just keeping you upright, it's the foundation of your ability to focus. Without it, your brain spends all its energy answering a simple question: which way is up? With it, your brain is free to think.
In 2008, Airbnb had a problem that seemed unsolvable. Why would anyone rent their home to a complete stranger? And why would any stranger trust that home wouldn't be destroyed? Hotels solved this through institutional control, staff, management, rules, consequences. But Airbnb's model was peer-to-peer. There was no staff. There were no consequences except reputation. So Airbnb did something radical. They made reputation the asterisk entire name's product. They didn't invent the two-way rating system, but they made it central to how the platform worked. After every stay, guests rate their experience, and hosts rate their guests. Everything is public. And that simple mechanic, transparency plus social accountability, made strangers trust strangers at scale. When a guest books an Airbnb, they see photos, price, amenities, and a star rating. That rating is an aggregate of reviews from everyone who stayed there. Guests rate 6 specific things: cleanliness, accuracy of listing, communication with host, ease of check-in, location, and value. Each category matters. A 5-star listing with terrible reviews on accuracy means the place looks better in photos than in reality. A 4-star with perfect cleanliness means one mediocre guest experience dragged the score down. Hosts see this data in real time. And it works. A host's rating is their resume. 4-star hosts get bookings. 2-star hosts get empty calendars. But here's where it gets strategic. Airbnb created a tier above hosts, the superhost. To become a superhost, you need an average rating of 4.8 stars or higher, at least 10 completed stays or 100 nights in the past year, less than 1% cancellation rate, minus a 90% or higher response rate to messages. Get all that, and you get a superhost badge. And that badge doesn't just look nice, it changes the business. Superhosts earn 29% more per year than regular hosts. 29%. Same market, same property type, same calendar availability. The badge is worth almost a third more revenue. It's a caste system. And it's working as designed. But here's the hidden cost. To get your first rating, you need 3 reviews. 3. And most new hosts, they get 0 bookings until they lower their price. Why? Because guests can see a property has no reviews, no history, no trust signal. So a new host with a beautiful apartment in the same neighborhood as a 4-star superhost, the guest books the superhost. Every time. New hosts respond by cutting prices 20%, 30%, even 40% below market rate, just to break into the review system. Just to get those first 3 ratings. Because until you have ratings, you're invisible. Airbnb didn't force this. The market logic of the trust system forced it. And Airbnb profits from every transaction. whether the host is making money or losing money trying to build reputation. It's elegant. The new host subsidizes the platform's growth by undercutting prices. The superhost benefits from the rating advantage. And Airbnb takes a cut, roughly 3% from hosts, 14 to 16% from guests, from all of it. In 2008, Airbnb had maybe 50 listings. Today, 7 million listings across 220-plus countries. And it all feeds on this. More listings attract more guests. More guests create more reviews. More reviews build more trust. More trust allows more listings. It's a network effect. But it's also a trust signal loop. Early Airbnb hosts with high ratings became celebrities on the platform. They got booked first, at premium prices, with the easiest guests. Newer hosts, starting with 0 ratings, got the leftovers. The system works. Guests get homes from trusted hosts. Hosts make money. Airbnb makes money. But the distribution of rewards, 29% more for superhosts, underpriced entry for newcomers, is the architecture of how trust was monetized. Airbnb solved the problem of trusting strangers. And in solving it, they created a mechanism that rewarded existing trust and penalized its absence. It's brilliant platform design. And it's also why the average Airbnb host makes between $14,000 and $44,000 per year. Not because the market is small, but because the caste system is working exactly as engineered.
Your eyes make 3 completely different kinds of tears, and most people don't realize they're different at all. There are basal tears, the ones that keep your eyes moist all day. There are reflex tears, which wash away irritants like onion fumes or dust. And then there are emotional tears, the ones you cry during grief, joy, or heartbreak. And here's the thing. Those emotional tears are chemically different. They're not the same liquid at all. When you cry from emotion, your tears contain leucine and enkephalin, a neuropeptide related to endorphins, your brain's natural painkillers. They also contain stress hormones, like adrenocorticotropic hormone, or ACTH. Your tears are literally your body's way of excreting excess stress hormones. You're sweating out your cortisol. You're crying out your adrenaline. In a real sense, tears are a chemical reset button. This is so specific that researchers have been able to distinguish emotional tears from reflex tears just by analyzing their biochemistry. Emotional tears have a different composition entirely. They're not just water with dust in it, they're a targeted chemical release. Here's where the timeline matters. When you cry from sadness or grief, you often feel worse immediately afterward. Your eyes are puffy, your breathing is ragged, your whole body is depleted. Within the first few minutes, crying makes you feel more distressed, not less. But then something shifts. Around 90 minutes after you stop crying, your emotional state reverses. You feel better than you did before the tears started. The stress hormones have cleared your system. The endorphins have been absorbed. Your neurochemistry has rebalanced itself. It's not magic, and it's not instant. It's the human body following a precise biochemical timeline. Your tears are doing work on your behalf, but that work takes time. This is why people who cry alone often feel confused. They expected to feel better right away, but instead they feel worse. What they don't realize is they need to wait out that 90-minute window. Interestingly, crying seems useless for immediate pain relief. Studies show that people who cry during physical pain actually have lower pain thresholds afterward, not higher. But emotional pain is different. Tears seem to have almost no effect on physical suffering. Instead, they're optimized for emotional regulation, for processing grief, overwhelming feelings, and psychological stress. Your body isn't trying to make you feel better in the moment. It's trying to chemically process what you're feeling and move you toward a healthier state. The short-term discomfort is the price of long-term rebalance. Other animals cry reflex tears. Dolphins, elephants, primates, they can all produce tears to lubricate their eyes. But emotional tears appear to be uniquely human. Or at least, nobody else does it the way we do. Your dog won't cry during a sad movie. Your cat doesn't tear up over heartbreak. But you do. And your body has fine-tuned this response over millions of years of evolution. Tears are a social signal. You're communicating need, vulnerability, and overwhelm to people around you. But they're also pharmacy, a self-administered chemical correction that only your species seems to use this way. The next time you cry, you'll probably want to feel better immediately. But now you know. That initial feeling of devastation is part of the process. Your body is excreting stress hormones. Your neurochemistry is resetting. At minute 91, you'll be different than you were at minute 1. Not because time magically heals, but because your tears literally changed your brain chemistry. Patience isn't just advice, it's biology.